DammitJim Show with your distractor-in-chief, Sideshow Todd. That's me. And we've got a fantastic show for you tonight that Jim and I are going to digest for you properly. We got a bunch of shit that's on Jim's mind, so it sounds kind of weird. So, you know, it's got black girls, southern causes, and freedom of speech. All those things I think fit properly. And then we'll move into some politics. You know, we got all the weird shit going on in North Korea and, you know, Armageddon. And some, obviously, our fuckhead in chief, Trumpet. And we're going to do some fun stuff with science. And then, you know, a little sports, because it's fucking football Sunday. So, with that being said, James, what's on your mind today, sir?
Okay, well, let's start with the Southern Cross, which is the Confederate flag in the minds of most people that we in the modern
stars
day.
And bars.
The stars and bars, which is technically, again, it's not actually the stars and bars. That refers to a different flag, but the modern lexicon has said no. They've reappropriated all these terms. Mm-hmm. We're loving the microphone sounds, by the way.
Go, just keep going.
I
Don't
gotta
stop.
watch. I'm enthralled. So.
Stars and bars.
The reason this comes up is I was Jim Banks, a friend of mine, met him, talked to him a little bit, listened to the show, and one of his feedback was like, "Hey man, that's not what that flag's about. You know, you guys don't know the history." He said he wasn't really a big fan of yours, big fan of mine, but not a big fan of yours. So you have your first hater.
Go, continue. I'm not. It doesn't. What am I supposed to react?
So here's
because I can already tell this guy's a fucking cracker, and he's already defending the goddamn stars and bars. Oh, you guys don't really understand the meaning of the flag. Please let us understand. Go.
Okay, so I think it's important to understand that first of all that the Southern Cross, as it's referred to in Southern lexicon, or in you know, the Confederate flag as it's called today, was never actually the Confederate flag. It was a battle flag of Virginia, battle flag of Tennessee. And it was used by basically people of those places that were conscripted into war because of the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And those are battle flags. Now, important to understand that after the Civil War was over, that was in no ways considered a symbol of racism and slavery and stuff like that. Nobody had any issues with the flag. The flag was just...
Because everyone was a racist.
Well, hold on.
Sorry.
Let's go through the history of this. You know, I mean, because the reason it came up too was that the flag was brought up by, like, for instance, the Dukes of Hazzards. You know, just some good old boys.
Never watched the show. I love the General Lee.
And everybody loved the General Lee.
And they really who doesn't love Daisy Duke?
Right. But here's what happened historically. So the flag originally had nothing to do with slavery, had nothing to do with racism.
On a moonshine.
It had to do with people that, granted, they lived in a time of slavery and racism, but they were born into it in the same way we're born to this time.
All right.
So there was a Southern heritage. There was a whole history behind this flag that represented Southern heritage.
So is all these things you're saying from this cracker?
No.
Okay.
I told him that I would.
What's his name?
His name is Jim Banks. He's
You're
a very nice guy.
Correct. Continue on.
Okay, Jim. So Todd, your favorite podcast star, now believes you are a cracker. So much for the polite discourse.
Let's ease in properly in the. So go on. Sorry.
Here's the important.
Where
thing
are you getting
understand.
to the point that somehow rationalizes this?
Well, it has to do with the fact that symbols become co-opted. The reason that flag is associated with racism is not because the people that fought under it and the people that raised it were particularly racist or not racist. They were just sort of people of their time. The flag was co-opted by the KKK, by the Dixiecrats, by the separationists, by the white supremacists. All of these groups, these hate groups, which obviously
it was the symbol of the Confederacy.
It was for them the symbol of the Confederacy, and then they
and
tied
even
it
in the time. I mean, I can see how you can get there with some mental gymnastics of saying that, okay, back in 1868, it really meant this to those people.
Right.
But ultimately, what it's come to mean is what's important, right? And it's become to mean a symbol of oppression and hate in our current society. I get it. All right, there's people who have co-opted it. There's people who have degraded.
Right. Well, that's why it's become a symbol of racism and hate.
Right. Sure.
Because it was co-opted by people. So so my message to Jim isn't that it doesn't mean those things, because symbols. The problem with a symbol is anybody can take it, and it's fluid. I mean, the Nazi symbol is a great example. You can't look at a Nazi symbol and not think of Nazis.
That symbol, they co-opted that symbol.
co-opted that
yes,
symbol.
it was a symbol. It was like it's like a.
I thought it was a Turkish thing.
It's a Wiccan thing. It's like some sort of like Celtic symbol.
Was it a Celtic
for
symbol?
Like
Not Turkish?
yeah. It's actually some sort of like positive symbol of like life or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it no longer means that because
No.
it's been co-opted. And unfortunately,
Yes.
for those that like the Southern Cross
Let's
symbol,
even look at
because
the
there was
Nazi
a
symbol. Let's use some real science here.
yeah, you
Yes,
can look up
continue.
exactly what that symbol used to
Yeah.
be. But it's a great example because in today's mind, it's been co-opted. So it's my point to Jim and those that believe in the Southern Cross and the Dukes of Hazzards and all these positive things.
Dukes of Hazzard, the positive portion of the.
Well, the point.
Let's just say that was harmless. Let's not say it was positive. Let's just say it was harmless.
Well, there's some good old
Okay.
boy. Well, they're trying to show that there's another side to the Southern heritage that doesn't involve racism, even though that they were living in the time of racism. It doesn't mean that they personally were involved in that kind of thing. That they're, again, we're born into these governments that we don't have any control over, situations we don't have control over. It doesn't mean that we didn't have families and grandpas and great traditions and, going out to the creeks and out in the Smoky Mountains and hunting with your family and your father and having all these things. Now, of course, there was obviously racism and a lot of Jim Crow laws at the time. But these individuals, that wasn't what they represented. They didn't have an issue one way or the other. It wasn't their world. But unfortunately for them and people like Jim, that flag was co-opted by these hate groups. And so, if you want people to be able to fly the Southern Cross, as I like to call it, as opposed to the Confederate flag, 'cause I think that's a more accurate term, you have to get it back. You have to go out and sell that. Hey, we're Southern Heritage. We're not about these hate groups. We're not, and you have to disavow the hate groups and embrace everybody with that flag before you can get it back, or you'll never get it back. But it'll always be a symbol of racism.
You're going to have a really, beyond the fact that it's been co-opted by in the current lexicon of its use,
Right.
then you're going to have a hard time selling to someone like myself that, okay, even in the supposed heyday of it just being a symbol for whatever, that it truly wasn't. People fighting under that battle flag were fighting to keep people enslaved.
Right.
So, end of story. So maybe it was just a battle flag. Okay. So, I mean,
Well, again, there's a difference between the leadership and the soldiers.
fair enough.
The
But
soldiers
they
are fighting to
took up
protect their
arms.
They were taking up
They-
arms to protect their land.
They can say that, there's
No
that
difference.
whole argument, like, why are you fighting? That's because you guys are down here. Like, there's that great, but I don't buy that. I don't buy that as an overall excuse for not, okay, for now. I mean, I don't know what it's like. Obviously, living in 1865. More centric view of your life, it was probably no more than a 50-mile square radius, and that's probably even pretty large, right? Most people didn't leave their county.
True. Right.
So, viewpoint, or standpoint, right?
Right.
That the world was significantly smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
Than it is now.
That's a very true thing.
Yeah.
Right. And if the people that were fighting in that don't need to be demonized, the point is there is a Southern history, there is a Southern culture that's getting lost because of the attachment to the Civil War and the racism that went along with it. And I think a lot of folks that don't have anything to do with that, the ones who, like, my family's always had this flag and it never meant that to us. Okay, and I get that. And you're technically correct. The problem is, it's like people want to wear. There's really no difference between that and, like, say, the Nazi flag, because it's just a symbol.
Well, I can remember. Here's a good.
Or the Nazi swastika on the flag.
Personal. For 13, 14 years ago. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I had what I thought would be a popular bead. Okay. It had the General Lee on it. Mm-hmm. Right. So it had the fucking General Lee on the car, a little plastic General Lee car on it. It was badass. Right.
Right.
And then a couple of Confederate flags as well. Mm-hmm. Right. And it did end up being popular, but I mean, I'd had the, people walking up to me in the street, like, you lost, like, they lost, like, like, saying, like, why are you carrying, and jokingly so. Right.
Yeah.
But, in the South, I was in Louisiana, in fucking New Orleans, and people were coming up to me, razzing me that I had a Confederate flag on, right? Mm-hmm. Now, and these were white people. They weren't black people, right? So even 10 years, before all everything had, or 14 years old, already seen as some, and even in me, and I'm not, you know where I stand on all these things. I was doing it out of fun, and then I had it like, this probably isn't really kosher, right? Even though they're selling in the store, and I loved the Dukes of Hazzard, so that's how I associated it, right? Like, and it'd be fun, and to have throw chicks Dukes of Hazzard beads, right? That's my whole standpoint, right? But in the broader sense, probably not all that cool, right? Even 14 years ago. So, fast forward into our racially charged times. I mean, you can't not. I get the whole idea where, okay, there's a prehistory that the flag wasn't necessarily a symbol of hate, but now in where we live today, it is absolutely a very sensitive symbol,
right?
That represents hate.
Even what prompted Jim to come up with that and mention that to me says, well, you're really trying to. You have to do some, mental gymnastics to go back that far to prove to yourself that flag doesn't mean what people say it does.
Right.
And again, you're technically correct. It doesn't. It never meant that. It was but it was appropriated by racists. Sorry. Yeah. And I think that sucks for people in the South that want to celebrate their heritage and whatnot. But the way around that, I think, is, hey, you know what? You need to embrace the flag, denounce the haters, and embrace, because you even see black people that wear the Confederate flag because there is a culture there, right? All the negative stuff, and so even black folks that have that tradition, there's still parts of their history that they embrace and love. And if you can bring that into the positive fold and get rid of the negative stuff, you might get your flag back. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 20, 30 years or ever.
No.
It's like getting the swastika back. It's just not going to happen.
No, I mean,
and I feel bad because I understand the argument, but
when you have an inclusive society, there's no way that symbol can in any way, in shape or form, be appropriate.
You can't wear little signs.
Yes, if it's all just honkies, you could probably get away with it.
Exactly.
But it's not. Nor should it be.
Sadly, there's a lot of people in the world that in this country right now that kind of wish it was just all honkies. That's kind of where they because they're very uncomfortable with people that look different, and that's a whole.
Well, and then there's the blame, like they're blaming person's fault. You name the brown person. It could be a black guy, it could be a Mexican guy, it could be an Asian guy, it could be Indian. They're all stealing your fucking jobs.
That's a very American thing is to divide people up by the colors of their skin and the differences in their nationalities and their ethnic backgrounds, and then wipe with a big brush. That's a very American thing to do.
But go back to the co-option. So the swastika thing, where it remains a sacred symbol in Asia. A symbol of spiritual principles of Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. So it was absolutely co-opted by the Nazi Party.
Right.
So in those countries, it's still used in various forms because it's always been part of Buddhism.
Right.
Always been part of Jainism. So it's like, but
it's been co-opted in the Western world. Now it means something else. That's the inherent problem with symbols. They don't have a legal definition.
So you can't really see it. But if I saw that symbol on somebody's, they had a little poster on their wall and it was this one,
right?
Then that doesn't mean Nazis to me, right?
Right.
But
it's in the same shape, but it's got an artistic form to it. But the ones with the hard left turns and the hard edges,
and
or the one that's turned 40.
Right there.
So I was in we're doing a program in New Jersey in this building that used to be an armory back in the 1890s, and we're setting up, and I'm in the lobby, and I realized there's Nazi, well, I shouldn't say there's Nazi, there's swastikas all over embedded in the tile.
Oh,
and I'm like, whoa! So I immediately go to the building.
Did you stumble on a bunker?
Well, I go to the building manager, and he's like, well, you have to understand, this building these symbols didn't mean that back then. He goes, well, how come you guys just still leave them there? Because obviously people are going to walk in and see these and be very offended.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's a historical building. We can't change the tile. It'd be a violation of our historical status. So we had to like literally at the beginning of the program.
Yeah.
You know, I told the VP that I said, that,
hey,
we're in a historical building, and that the swastika existed long before the Nazis, and this was put in as they can't change it, but don't think that this is somehow a Nazi bunker or some kind of thing. It has nothing to do with the two. The symbol was co-opted after it was built, and it can't be changed. But I just thought it was really
if that was the case, then so the building was built in what, in like the 1920s?
No, it was built in like 1890.
Oh, nice.
1880,
That's
something like
cool.
So it was good. It was a cool old building. It was an old or station of some kind that they turned it into like an event venue.
Yeah.
So all the offices became meeting rooms, and then they had a big auditorium for presenting whatever the hell they did back then.
Back in the day.
Yeah, military plans or whatever, so they can get the whole group together. So it was an interesting thing. All right, what do we got next on our
Black Girls Rock T-shirts?
Okay, so
explain this to me, cracker.
This came up because a good friend of mine's a school teacher, and she said that a girl wore a shirt to school that said "Black Girls Rock."
And then,
well, then it became a concern.
Why?
Because
they made it a concern.
Someone made it a concern.
Yes.
Well, here's the problem. That she kind of brought up.
If I wore a White Girls Rock T-shirt, everybody would be upset.
Exactly. It's a double standard, she said.
Come on.
And I said, what if somebody wore a shirt that said Irish Girls Rock?
That would be okay.
And then there's the pause. Like, well, what do you mean?
All right.
Well, when these school policies come up, like what you can and can't wear, the reason the girl was allowed to wear the shirt was because her parents said, hey, we gave her that shirt.
Right.
Not that she wore it. That seemed to be the difference. If the child chose it, they could take it away. But because the parents said it was okay, she could wear it. And my friend didn't understand the difference. Like, well, how come I can't say White Girls Rock? And I said, well, this is kind of a deep conversation. You got to go back through theology. But that's where I said, like, what if you had a shirt that said Irish Girls Rock or Italian Girls Rock? And here's the big difference. And it gets even deeper. But on the surface, you have to understand that black people in this country are the only ethnic group in this country that don't have a secondary ethnic identification. In other words, we're all white people.
Right.
We're white Americans, but I'm Italian and Dutch and English, and you're Irish and Dutch, I don't know, German, whatever.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch,
so German, or people can be Polish, or people can be Puerto Rican, or they can be Mexican. They can be all these different things, and Americans. Black people don't have a secondary ethnic.
African Americans?
That's what they're labeled as.
So they're not labeled as like Nigerians.
But the second...
That's a good point, though. They're not... So they the broad stroke, like they didn't all come from like... just like we all didn't come from one spot in Europe.
They didn't all come from
one spot in Africa. Like some were Nigerian, and some were South African, some
but
were
because of the history of how they got there, that was all wiped away.
Chadians or whatever the fuck it is.
So they have no idea where they came from. Unless they do a DNA test and try to trace it back, they really have no idea. The only ethnic identification they get is black. That's their differentiation.
It's funny, though. There's like the recent... Because that's a good point, because the recent immigration patterns, like, so there's like a large Ethiopian population now in Minneapolis.
Right.
Right, exactly.
But as soon as they put Black Girls Rock, they get the push of the white girls back.
Right.
It's immediately seen as an affront. Yeah. And she's like, well, how come you can't say white? I'm like, well, why don't we just Google white? What does white pride mean? What does black pride mean? And we sat there and Googled it right in front of her.
Right.
And as soon as you brought up white pride, it showed, white separatists, exactly. It went straight to the KKK and all the racist stuff. As soon as you Google black pride, it says this is a movement that was created in response to the white pride movement.
Just want to say to you,
and it's just
all your cracker listeners out there, Jim and I are both race traders. We're dating brown women.
We're race. I do like the brown woman. Actually, mine's... Well, she's kind of brown, I guess. All of that's racist anyway. Doesn't really matter. But
fair enough.
My point, and I think it was well made. with her, and she kind of understood. And white people need to understand that, you know, they do kind of run the society.
We kinda do.
No, we don't kinda. We are the power in the Western world.
Yes.
And the minorities seek their own identification because they're not the primary one. You lose. I mean, you see white, and a token. White, and a token.
Yeah.
Of all different nationalities.
Yeah.
And so all this white power. You already have the white power. So
Right. We are currently the.
we are, at some point, you need to, you know, back the fuck off.
Well, to have an inclusive society, you need to have some humility.
Humility would be nice, and compassion
as
is good.
the person, and recognize your position. But that humility can simply be recognizing your position in society.
Exactly.
That's your humility, and that doesn't even take much. Just saying, yeah, I have it better.
You know, and this,
my path was easier because I'm a 6'2" white male.
This topic and this topic kind of rolled into white privilege,
right?
Which immediately somebody said, "There's no such thing as white privilege,"
Oh,
and I said,
"Horseshit."
Well, let me give you an example that's kind of mundane. Example, but it's a very true one. I read it in an article whatsoever. I judge people their characters, but I don't understand
racist.
why.
Go ahead. Yes.
Well, he wasn't. He was asking her the honest question,
right?
And she said, "Let me give you an example of white privilege that maybe might help you to temper the subtlety of it."
Right.
She's like, "I was dating a man. He was also an attorney. You know, he was Ivy League educated, lived in a very nice neighborhood. He comes to pick me up for the date, our first date. I get in the car, and the first thing I see is baby wipes in the front seat.
Right.
And I grab these things,
right.
She's saying. She's like, why would you have baby wipes if you don't have you told me you didn't have a wife or kids. He's like, I don't. He goes, then why the hell do you have baby wipes in the front? She goes, and I turned back, and I looked in his back seat, and on the window, his rear view window,
right.
He goes, there's all these stuffed animals, like you would see for like little kids and babies and stuff.
Right.
And she's like, okay, what the fuck is this? She's like, what's? And he's like, hang on, let me explain. He says, I'm a black man who lives in an affluent neighborhood.
Right.
I drive a nice car. He goes, I get pulled over all the time. I come home in this neighborhood, I get pulled over constantly. He goes, I finally asked a friend of mine who's a white cop, and I said, hey man, what can I do to stop getting pulled over all the time? He was never harassed, or he was never arrested, he was never abused. I mean, the cops were always very professional with him. He never had any issues like that.
Right.
But he was still getting pulled over for any little thing. And his friend, who was the police officer, he says, you know, why don't we put a bunch of things in your car, like stuffed animals and things like that make it look like you're a family man.
Yeah.
And they will profile you differently, and you're less likely to be pulled over.
Yep.
And she's like, that's white privilege. A white person would never have to do that to prevent being pulled over by the cops.
Yes.
She goes, now it's a subtle thing. It's not like the end of the world. He's not being beaten. You knew that there's a good chance you could be pulled over by any police car you saw.
Yeah.
Second thing I thought about, he's like, well, what if you became an affluent black person in this country and you wanted to buy a nice house, like a nice 4-bedroom house with a pool and whatever?
Right.
What are the odds that you'd have to move into a white neighborhood to get that house? Right?
Oh, sure.
Almost definitely would have to.
Yeah.
Almost every ethnicity, had experience. My wife is the only non-white person that lives in this neighborhood.
I believe that.
And I have very nice neighbors. I have very respectful neighbors.
Right.
My family has been harassed on 3 separate occasions.
All right, you were telling me
by
that.
People in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because they did something a little
it's
bit.
It's past lawn cutting time. What is these colored people is being here?
One guy, my neighbor, turned to my brother-in-law and said, "You don't live here. You don't belong here. What are you doing here?" And he was in the car with his 14-year-old son, and his parents were staying with us.
Right.
And so these elderly parents were coming out of the house, and this guy has the balls to be bitching at him. And I have surveillance cameras in the house. I saw the whole thing go down.
Right.
My brother-in-law is a cop, so when he reported it back to me, and I watched the video, it could not have been closer. He was like 15 seconds. The guy pulled around me. He pulled up, and I sent my son out to talk to him. And he's like, who the fuck are you? What are you doing here? You don't belong here. It was really, really aggressive.
Right.
And
I've really been waiting for one of your neighbors to get aggressive with me.
well, you're not, My neighbors are. I mean, again, they're very nice people, but.
I mean, I don't drive an upper echelon vehicle, so.
But they look. I mean, the thing about it was he was driving a late model pickup truck. It wasn't like he was driving a piece of crap. And he pulled right into my driveway, like he owned the place. And the guy, he didn't sit and watch and see like who is this guy, to recognize him and wait to see if it was, because as soon as you saw my in-laws coming out of the house, you would realize, oh, that's the family. They obviously belong there.
Right.
He didn't wait for that. He immediately attacked. Anecdotal situation, but again,
yeah, something that we don't deal with.
We don't have to deal with that. Yeah. So, laugh what you will about white privilege, but denying that it exists, it doesn't really help the situation. Listen, people win wars, people win social wars, people win economic wars, and we divide ourselves based on ethnicity. So right now the white people kind of have a good hand.
So what you're saying is you diffused the T-shirt situation.
I explained my opinion that the reason that T-shirt was okay and white girls are not okay was because of all the deeper connotations. But what I thought about too was just by look at all the problems you create.
Right.
If you just let everybody say whatever the hell they wanted and deal with the consequences, I'm like, if world wants to,
so it rolls us into section 3 of your gyms.
Okay.
Which is your free speech infringement.
My free how it. The reason I was
speech of infringement.
The point is with this T-shirt with the kids in school, I thought to myself, I said, it really kind of is prophetic that they said that free speech shall not be infringed, because the second we start to infringe it, even on the most, fringes of the
infringe on the fringes,
from the fringes. As soon as we start to go down that road,
right,
we open up a can of worms and a whole box of issues. So what I say, personally, I think that people should be able to wear white girl rocks T-shirts or fucking Nazi girl rocks T-shirts if that's what they want, and then let the society deal with them.
That's not Big Brother's.
It's not big policy. And people, well, it's the kids. They can't say, I fucking love, Nazi girls, because you can't have a swear word. But I'm like, well, but why not?
Right.
Why not? Everyone's so busy being offended. And I get why they don't want it on there. I totally understand that argument and debate. Right. Plus, they're kids. But what I thought was interesting is...
Well, you hit the nail on the head before that, though. Where is their parental figures, their elders? Someone should have pulled them aside before the shirt was even purchased.
Right.
And let alone worn.
Right.
And explained... Okay, well, what's your protest? This is why you should not do that. There should have been some guidance.
Right. Which leads to the larger point. Should schools be enforcing this, or should schools say your free speech will not be infringed? Your parents can infringe your free rights.
I mean, it depends on the area, I suppose, right? Because, if it's clearly going to lead to a big brawl in the middle of school, then somebody, if it's a racially charged area anyway, and it's larger than just, you're larger than say your pride, right? You're just doing it for ethnic pride,
right?
Right, versus your territory
to qualify what the speech will mean to people.
Yeah,
and not that I disagree with the concept.
Well, that's the
in terms of the law,
right?
You think maybe this whole shall not be infringed thing should be respected a little bit more. Like, listen, you know what? If the parents are going to let you out of the house with that T-shirt on, then that's fine. The school's not going to enforce anything different. If you get your ass kicked at recess, maybe you shouldn't wear the shirt. I mean,
that's not the world we live in.
I know, but free speech
guarantees you. I agree. Let society, the social, contract that we all have living together
with each other.
Yeah. Be enforced
and keep the government out of it.
And that kid get this. and then maybe my worldview is pretty fucking skewed.
Yeah, maybe I won't wear that shirt because if I wear this shirt, I'll get my ass kicked.
Right.
But we have to let them kick their ass or let them like win
Or
the fight,
not.
whatever.
Or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it's like let the parents decide and keep the government out of it. Listen, the government's going to say, hey, the kid shouldn't wear that shirt. It goes the same thing. You can across anything. Like the whole Kaepernick not kneeling for the national anthem. Everybody wants him to be.
What the most fucked up about that is, do you realize that he did it for 3 games
before anybody noticed? Yeah.
And before there's this national outrage.
Right.
It's obscene.
Well, it's like
I'm not saying he should have a job. I don't really think that he was that particularly great of a quarterback, to be honest. Like, I don't think that he's done anything to play himself into a contract. But on top of that,
here's the thing, though.
If my view is there's people who don't think that, and they're making the decision not to bring it on because of the protest.
That's their right.
Yes, it's a business.
That's what you walked into.
Do that all the time. That's why they do background checks on every single one of us.
That's when you didn't stand up for the national anthem.
You
set yourself up for this. I mean, listen, if Brock Osweiler got re-signed, Colin Kaepernick should get a shot somewhere. Let's be honest.
Well, he knew the offense. I mean, so it's a little. I would agree that I can't possibly believe that Brian Hoyer is a better starting quarterback than Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco.
We could make a list. So
I could say he should never have had to leave San Francisco for a lesser deal. Say he took less money, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't. There's certain situations he wouldn't fit. In Denver, I wouldn't think be one of those situations. But there are some that he certainly would.
Well, I didn't mean in Denver specifically. Right. What I meant was the quality of quarterback Brock Osweiler is versus what Colin Kaepernick's resume says. There's no way Brock should have a job and Colin doesn't. That doesn't make any sense unless you bring in the other thing. But that's totally legit.
Yeah,
you kneeled during the national anthem. You knew that you were offending people who hold that particular moment in time as absolutely sacred.
Right.
And you have the right people. But the people that hold that sacred also have the right to say, okay, well, socially, I'm going to reject you.
Right.
I'm not giving you a job. Don't want you in my house. Don't want you in my team.
Yep.
Jerry Jones said if anybody kneels during the national anthem, their ass will be on a plane that night.
Right.
Nobody kneeled. Now, that's, I'm not really, the flip side of that is obviously, guys, listen, you should stand for the national anthem. You should, be respectful of the Pledge of Allegiance, but you shouldn't to be angry with America.
Yes.
But don't disrespect the people who fought for that flag. It's just not bad. It's bad policy.
Well,
and
I think you're associating.
I would teach my kids not to do that kind of thing.
The national anthem becomes always immediately associated with with veterans, and it's our national anthem. Okay, they don't play that song on the opening of every fucking battle that we go into. It's not our battle song. Right, but it just like we said, it's been co-opted. It's the de facto symbol of whether or not your patriotism and whether or not you support those things that have allowed you to be a patriot, namely the military.
Right.
Right.
Well, we can get into that military conversation because it's another one on my list. I don't know if it's on a schedule for today.
It's not.
But the military-industrial complex and how it plays a role in our life, I think, is a huge. The vice president for FDR.
No, I don't know much about him.
Yeah, well, maybe that's one we can save for the next show because he was the Bernie Sanders of his time, got screwed out of the vice presidency. He should have been president.
Really?
He should have been. Harry Truman was basically forced in by the party bosses. And the only reason he got forced in was because
FDR did not like Harry Truman.
FDR didn't really talk to him.
FDR
was, but the problem was during that election, FDR was so sick that he was not able to go to the convention. She fought for Henry Wallace before. I think he started off as Secretary of the Interior, or Agriculture. I have to go back and look, but then he became Vice President. But he was very progressive and is a very different man than Harry Truman. My point is, the entire history of the Western world was changed because of that one election. Because, well, not the vice president election, but because Harry Truman and not Henry Wallace became president at that point in time. Changed history dramatically. And it's worth going back and understanding that, we take a lot of these things for granted. But at the time, they were very volatile, very contentious, and didn't necessarily know which way they were going to go.
Right.
So, that's why, show for another time.
Definitely show for another time.
Henry Wallace, military industrial index. Stay tuned next week because I want to get into that a lot. So,
all right,
boss. Where are we next?
Let's go nude.
Oh, by the way, let me do a little public service announcement in case anybody.
Public service announcement.
Yeah, if you want to contact us, we're available at DammitJim Podcast on Skype. You can call me right now, and we'll put you on the air.
Nobody else knew that we were going to be on, even, right?
Well, because we're not very consistent with our times and our weeks.
I think this will be a consistent time in the future.
Well, I think it's perfect that we can watch the Bears. But what happens when the Bears game schedule changes? Then we're going to change. I'm also thinking I'd like to do a couple shows during the week when I'm home. I know you're working.
I can do one. I was flexible to do one a couple nights, but you couldn't do them.
I know it's hard.
It is hard. We're working. God damn it! Why don't you just?
This isn't our full-time job, folks.
Just retire.
Thank God, and believe it or not. Well, I can retire, but I have to tell you, you're the one that needs to retire.
Well, at least the only one schedule we're working with then is just mine.
Just yours. Well,
I can't retire yet. I got a few years yet.
It's hard because I want to do more shows, but I don't want to do them without my sidekick. So other guys want to come in and say stuff. I might end up having to do some shows. And
could. They just won't be as entertaining as me.
Well, that's yeah.
Right.
I like the way you're working.
Here, you gotta get. It seemed wrong. All right, so let's go on.
Same mic, same stand.
So let's get into North Korea. Let's not spend a lot of time on it, but I would like to spend some time on it. Because it's what I think that concerned me. Number one, they've weaponized a hydrogen bomb. Okay, which I guess if you're not from the Generation X or prior, you're not part of Generation X, you're not part of baby boomers, you don't really understand what it means. We grew up in the nuclear age where, I don't know, you can pipe in on this, Jim, where we had disaster drills.
Damn it, Jim.
Did you have disaster drills?
We never actually did.
So we had to literally.
You ducked and covered still?
No, we got underneath our desk.
Yeah.
Because
protected by kindling from pure
Gorbachev
fire.
sent over a nuke and getting under your fucking desk.
Yeah.
That was going to be that was the tipping point of saving your life or not.
Yeah.
It's getting under the desk.
Yeah, that was amazing.
But we literally had these. We had disaster drills.
There was movies about them and stuff. Yeah, they'd show in school, and the duck and cover.
That was after. I can't believe you were in the prime. You were during weren't you in school during the fucking Cuban Missile Crisis?
Jesus Christ.
But so anyway, the 80s were
but I know about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Charged. Global nuclear war was a very real presence.
It was a very
in
real
the lives
concern,
of Americans in the 1980s, where I think people were, obviously, because we have no reverence even for what things that happened 5 years ago, let alone things that happened 25 years ago.
Right.
So let me just fucking fill it in. All right, it was a real problem. There was even neurological disorders of people who thought the world was going to end apocalyptically within a short period of time because of global nuclear war. We are on the precipice all the time. The buildup was insane. The amount of money that we had spent in the 80s on our nuclear armament buildup was crazy, and a point of pride for Reagan. Right, the whole arms race is essentially what broke, the Soviets.
Yeah, the Soviet bloc was economically destroyed by the
arms
war.
race, right? Which the war, everyone looked. That's a nice little nature. They needed to match our own arsenal,
right?
So you live. So I'm bringing this around to is we lived in this very real threat of nuclear war, and I think it is now upon us again with what's now it's just one nuclear warhead, but that's all it takes to weaponize a hydrogen bomb. That's like something like 15 Hiroshimas in one little fucking missile. Right.
Well, this has been a long concern of the scientists that this is eventually going to fall into somebody else's hands.
Right.
Eventually, someone's going to have their finger on the trigger that shouldn't, and they'll pull it.
Right.
And you're looking at North Korea and why they exist and what happened with them and the whole nuclear buildup in the 80s and Reagan. And
what's really funny though?
There's a lot of history to go through.
MacArthur, when he was leading the North Korean army for the U.S.
South Korean.
Yeah. He's like, we need to nuke these guys right now.
Truman
wouldn't do it.
No, he wouldn't do it because he didn't want to. Because again, he didn't want to engage with the
Chinese.
at the time.
Which they were engaging with because they killed hundreds of thousands.
You use a nuclear weapon.
Yes.
So
Yes.
he didn't want to do it.
No, and rightfully so. But it's just. But we're back to where we are now, and now they have something similar, right? What would happen if we had just dropped one on, like, Pyongyang or wherever? You know what I mean? Would it have had a similar effect of when we dropped one in Nagasaki? Mm-hmm. Right. Then just everybody's okay. We're coming to the peace table. Like it's you see the power, you feel the power. Your population feels the after effects, and it's just instantaneous. Let's talk.
Okay, except for there's a couple things historically to understand. The droppings of the bomb in Nagasaki and Hiroshima were not what ended World War II. And
they were what ended the Japanese theater. Is what they did. They ended the Japanese theater.
No, what ended the Japanese theater was the Soviets attacking. This is a big misconception. I mean,
Soviets attacking what?
When the Soviets attacked Japan at the end of the World War II, that's what got Japan to the peace table, not the
Soviets weren't
bombs.
even in Japan. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about
through China, like Manchuria, like
Manchuria,
okay.
Mongolia. They were attacking there.
Right.
With American War. That's what. If in the history that you can go
but
back.
We were on the verge of doing the second largest naval invasion in history,
which would have killed millions and millions.
Yeah, we were on the verge of, that was about to happen.
Well, was to prevent millions of American soldiers from dying in Japan.
Right.
But you go back and read the history, the fact of the matter
I'm not saying that I agree with that narrative. I'm saying, but there is no doubt that we were on the precipice of a major invasion of the Japanese islands.
Yes. I mean, if you were to boil it down to that set of facts, but the fact is that the Japanese, the reason that they came to the table wasn't because we dropped the atomic bombs. They came
atomic bombs.
Two. I mean, well, and again, this is in the political times. This is debatable. So what I'm saying isn't fact. It is opinion based on the situation. And if you go back, even Eisenhower himself said that dropping those bombs was completely unnecessary. That we killed all those civilians for no reason because what drove them to the table was the Soviets invading. Now that's an opinion. That could be wrong.
All right,
but the scenario
because they're pretty hardcore. I mean, you have to too. If you're gonna look at all of the history, and I'm not gonna, MacArthur. I'm not gonna sit here and say. I mean, obviously, hindsight's 20/20, right? This dude lived it, drove it, and helped him and Ike. Were the success of World War II, right? And Patton, right? But the way they defended the islands that they held in the South Pacific. It was a precursor to what the invasion
of Japan
of the Japanese islands would have been like.
Yeah, it would have been.
So it would. I mean, they had no chance of keeping any of the islands once we won those major, the Battle of Midway, and their navy was decimated.
Yeah, but they still fought to the death because that's who they were.
Yes.
So you are correct in the sense that the use of nuclear weapons in that scenario would have made sense.
Right.
It just when we did it. And here's the
I'm
problem.
not a proponent of nuclear weapons. Now we're at this turning point.
Again, 100,000 versus a million, 2 million that would have died. Only a fool wouldn't make that deal.
Right.
You're going to kill 100,000 people, but you're going to save, 1.9 million. So, it's comparative tragedy.
Right. And I don't know. Do those casualty numbers include the Japanese casualties as well, or those are just U.S. soldiers? They're thinking?
I think. Again, I don't know.
Because who knows what the civilian casualty would have been, right, from the Japanese standpoint?
Yeah, with those same battles. Yeah. So we would have killed just as many people.
Well, to hammer home your point, though, so the firebombing of Tokyo killed like 150,000 people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like when they firebombed Tokyo, it killed more people than
it took
Hiroshima.
us more planes and more bombs, but we actually killed and destroyed way
more
cities just with conventional bombing.
Well, they knew that, so they went in there with
atomic
bombs.
They were just 2 more cities that they lost. They'd already lost 15 major cities by that point, so they lost 2 more, and they lost how many people? It wasn't exactly on their radar. I mean, you go back and when they read like what the Japanese were talking about behind the scenes,
same time,
the atomic bomb almost never comes up. It was the Russians invading that came up because they didn't.
Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they've got pretty big monuments to the whole catastrophe there.
Well, because it was a big splashy bomb.
It was horrible, and the aftermath. And
I'm not saying that it had no effect.
Fallout.
I didn't even say that what my opinion was 100% true. I'm just saying it's an
Right.
opinion. And the point is that there was like, it's like anyone else. There was Republicans and Democrats and Libertarians and different people were against dropping the bomb. Actually,
Right.
most people were.
Yeah, and it's kind of done in secret. You know,
yeah.
gay. Nobody really knew what was going to happen.
I mean, Truman basically came out and said, listen, the reason I dropped the bomb is because if people found out I had this thing and didn't use it to save people's lives, they would have crucified me. So I wasn't going to
Great,
hold
let's do it
anything
for
back.
political reasons. Yeah.
Well, a lot of things
So
happen for political reasons.
But let's just bring this around to the parlances of our time.
Yeah, let's go back to our...
Yeah, how full these things are. With earthquake reading devices, they detected it in fucking Japan. That's how powerful this blast is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It set off a magnitude enough, and it set off a shock wave that, what's the meter, and it just seems like it was kind of a blimp. We were just waiting for the next hurricane. We're just waiting for the next thing to glam onto from this. And this is a fairly significant. And I mean, so let's just. I mean, this scenario. Here's the scenario I play out. Okay. Let's say he somehow feels threatened enough to launch, and he launches one. All he has to do is launch one, right? And then obviously we launch, right? And then who else is going to fucking launch? That becomes the question.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, more than likely, we can shoot down one or two. And he hasn't proved consistently that he can hit the U.S. continent. Mm-hmm. Right? But one of our, like Japan, he could hit fucking Tokyo.
Yeah, or South Korea.
Yeah.
Right below.
Well, obviously he hit South Korea. That's
South
a
Korea.
chip shot now.
Right.
You can put Seoul under fucking Seoul would not exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens next, right? I mean, when we know the U.S. I mean, that's the other thing. Maybe that with the lack of reverence for recent history, the stockpile that we have, is enough already. The U.S. to destroy the entire Earth 3 times over. Mm-hmm. 3 times.
Kill everybody.
Everyone, everything, every living thing. Mm-hmm. If we launched our stockpile, poof, 3 times, not just once. So we could send one round around, everybody's dead, and then we can send another round around, everybody's dead again, and then another time, everybody's dead again. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been playing with this regime for, God, what's it now? 30 years.
Well, I mean, you could say longer than that. You could say since the truce, the 1950s, where they drew the second parallel.
Yeah.
Is so you're testing, right?
Right.
It was his dad or his grandpa
mm-hmm.
but yeah, he's certainly, pushed the bar. Once the old man passed, it seemed he just ramped things up.
Well, here's the problem, though.
Young guys are aggressive.
Right, but we
pop a cap in them.
We
can't put a seal within a mob.
People, as if we're the right people to have this technology.
Yeah.
The scientists that built it, they had very prophetic and very emotional responses. I'm the father of death, or
there was a great Oppenheimer has all kinds of quotes.
Oppenheimer was stuff. Nuclear superiority.
This was the power of we were the right.
Yeah, and they completely freaked out when the Russians exploded
like
a
the
nuclear
next
bomb.
day.
It was the 50s, but it took a while. Yeah. But they were blown. What? And they exploded some of the biggest nuclear bombs, or atomic weapons in history, and America was taken by surprise. And the scientists we told you we couldn't keep this stuff under wraps. It's going to get out. There's just no way.
Right. It's a logical progression.
Yeah. So the more
once they decipher the atom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation because they're listen, well, if you pursue the technology, it'll it's going to get out. But if we don't pursue it, they can't get it because we don't know it either.
Right.
It's going to take another world power with limited funds in order to do this kind of research. It's that expensive and that difficult to do.
Right.
But because we went ahead and did the work, well, now the blueprint exists, and now it probably is going to lead to the demise of the human race at some point. Because I mean, how long can we avoid the sniper's bullet on that?
Well,
You know, you mentioned the Bay of Pigs. You know, we almost. You realize how close? I don't think most people remember this. I know you're a big history buff.
The Cuban Missile Crisis?
How close we came to nuclear annihilation.
Right.
We came down to one political officer on one submarine talking down the captain from hitting the button.
Right.
Because he couldn't contact Soviet Russia.
Right.
We were dropping, death charges on his submarine.
Right.
Not realizing it was a nuclear sub with like 4 or 8 weapons that could easily reach the United States. It was right there at Cuba.
Right.
And he thought, listen, we're under attack. The war has started.
Right.
If we don't launch, we're going to be considered cowards by our people for not fighting back.
Right.
He was ready to fire the buttons. And took the
evil guy.
Oh, he's the evil doofus, like Nazi kind of guy.
Yeah.
He was the one. His name was Vasily Andrakov or something. Like nobody even knows who this guy is. He probably single-handedly saved the world.
Right.
Because if they would have launched 4 nuclear weapons at the United States, do you think that the generals wouldn't have just, no matter what Kennedy said, would have fucking gone balls in?
Global nuclear.
Everyone's like, yeah, but it was fine. You're like, oh my God. So now we got this clown. He's got the bomb, and we have a guy in the White House who is
equally a clown,
who's not capable of dealing with the severity of this threat.
No,
it's just a matter.
What the fuck is that garbage?
Yeah. So, all right.
So just pay attention. There's the real listen, folks, because this shit's for real.
It is for real, and it's very extraordinarily dangerous.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be sitting around there, shooting pool, watching your football game, and one day
that's gonna get really hot.
Yeah, something's gonna happen eventually.
And your sunscreen isn't gonna work.
Yeah, it might be your grandkids when they're 50 doing it, but it's gonna happen because you can't have this many nuclear weapons out there and not have someone eventually get hold of one and set it off.
De-escalation was on its way, and it just seemed to stagger. Anyway, let's just move on. I just thought we should talk about it for a minute.
No, I thought it was good.
So let's just go into the next portion of the Trump dumpster fire, which I think is extremely important to discuss. So there was a really good article in the USA Today. Surprising. So to me, that is a signal of how far fucking this guy has gone, that USA Today has done a investigative reporting article
to the McNews.
Yes, to show
the Egg McMuffin of cutting stories.
How corrupt this fucker is. Yeah, exactly. The squirrel surfing newspaper of America has come out with an investigative reporting story on Donald Trump, where it essentially detailed how all of these lobbyists and political interest groups have signed up to be members of his golf clubs.
Oh, right.
Right? And how Mar-a-Lago, the fees doubled. The second day he took office, the day he took office, the membership fees of Mar-a-Lago doubled. Mm-hmm. And now all of these people, and they did this thing where they looked at the schedule of when these guys play golf and when he plays golf. Mm-hmm. All of them are playing golf the same day he is. Now, not necessarily in the same foursome. It's impossible. We all know that.
Right.
But they're at the golf course, at the club, the same days he is.
Trying to get access to the
right. That they've paid for and enriched Donald Trump. Right? He is being enriched by his office, which is a direct...
So what was the John Kelly staff is limit access to Trump. That's one of the big tenets of what he's been doing. And he's the one that kicked Omarosa out of the White House entirely. Right. And nobody can see Trump without going through him, at least in the White House. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering in this story, obviously this stuff happened before John Kelly came along.
Members of the clubs Trump has visited most often as president in Florida, New Jersey, Virginia include at least 50 executives whose companies hold federal contracts, 21 lobbyists, and trade group officials. Mm-hmm. So the ones who played just as much as he has at his courses in Florida, Jersey, and Virginia all fall into those groups. Mm-hmm. Companies, trade groups, and lobbyists. Mm-hmm. Two-thirds played on one of the 58 days the president was there.
Two-thirds. Yeah, so the draining of the swamp thing, I think we've established, is completely ridiculous.
What a bunch of shit.
It's just not happening.
So he's doing the exact same, and then he's in himself financially as part of which is grossly illegal.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with all the legal stuff with Mueller going after him. I think that those stories are, with the indictments. The He's now interviewing Sean Spicer and Reese Priebus.
Rance Priebus. Gotta say the name right.
Rance
Priebus.
Rance Priebus. They're interviewing them. I think we'll see where. Honestly, I think of all the stuff that's going on, it's going to be his finances that's going to get him in the Achilles, and it's going to be up to them to take him out. Now, here's what makes things really, really interesting, and that's the DACA thing that he signed, the repealing it in 6 months and kicks it back to Congress. And that's a little frustrating for me because I listen to some people that I know are talking about this about it's constitutionally illegal and these people should pay reparations and for their parents sins and they shouldn't get away with this because it'll entice other people to do this. And I'm thinking, I understand you're trying to stand on principle, but you're a little.
Go look at the Statue of Liberty, you dick.
You dick. Because what you're doing to these people is reprehensible. And legality and morality are not the same thing. You're willing to participate and support an absolutely holy, immoral act of attacking these kids or young adults.
All of which, to get DACA, they had to go through they went through a very stringent filtering process.
They did everything that they could do. There's no line for them to stand in to get citizenship. Yeah. And you're still waiting to beat them and still waiting to deport them. I mean, again, my wife, there by the grace of God goes she, because she came over as an immigrant. Right. Now, she was able to do it legally because there was opportunities available to them. Right. But that's literally a piece of paperwork. Yeah. Her and her brother were both at one point were expunged from the citizenship rolls. Yeah, that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. When she had to go and take care of all that. She had to go back and prove that she was a citizen, or get hit the high road because of a legal, nuance. Now, the other side of this, which I think is what makes things interesting, which is why I bring it up, is I almost think, as bad as this idea is, and I really hate what it's doing to the DACA people and kids and going through that, is that it may actually work because it's going to force Congress's hand. Because they have a choice now. Lindsey Graham is singing, we need to do the DREAM Act now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so in some perverse way, for the first time, I can say, you know what? Trump might be crazy like a fox on this one because he's actually forcing Congress to act. Then he turned around and he made that deal with the Democrats to not only pay increase the debt limit and fund all 15.7 million, whatever it was, for Harvey billion. I'm sorry, billion. And completely pissed off the Republicans. Yeah. But at the same time, what did he just do? He just did something good for Americans. The only people that didn't win on that deal were the politicians. The people won. Right. And you're like, holy shit, did Donald Trump just turn around and do something good for I'll go back to Trevor Noah. That's a softball, man. It's a softball. But he hit the softball. For God's sakes, this guy isn't anything. Yeah. Trevor Noah said, this guy just likes complimented. He's good. He did things. He got tons of praise from a lot of people, and he's happier than a pig in shit. I'm like, well, maybe Trevor Noah was right. Yeah. Instead of attacking the guy, compliment him into. Well, yeah, but you're still dealing with like basically a child, an infant. Yeah, you're going to give him a lollipop if he does what you want. Yeah, I got a lollipop. He's exactly. No one's ever done anything like I have. If you could give people universal health care, they'd build statues of you. And you know what? They would. No one's ever done anything like this in the first 7 months of a presidency. No matter what kind of knucklehead job he does, anything else, if he were to get universal health care for all Americans, but I'm just saying theoretically, if he could do that, they would put his ass on Mount Rushmore. You'd be shocked what they do. Healthcare is hard work. I know it's hard work. We're one of only like 2 or 3 industrial nations in the world that don't have it. We're the only one. And you realize we're also only one. I was reading some more thing, but about the taxes, and about we're overtaxed. You realize that we're the 4th lowest country in the industrialized world in terms of taxes. Right. 4th lowest. There's the zero, there's the Cleveland Browns or the New Jersey Jets, New York Jets, even though they play in New Jersey. And then you've got up here, you got the Cleveland Browns in terms of taxes. We're way the hell down there. Did I just turn that on? Or what? How much we pay? What are you talking about? I'm talking about how much we pay. We pay a lot. We pay almost the lowest of any country in the industrialized world. We don't. I pay a lot. Maybe other people don't pay a lot. No, well, because you're in the middle class. I pay a lot. I pay a lot.
See, it's not equally distributed.
But
I would challenge that. I would say if it was equally distributed, if the guy making $5.5 million paid the same percentage of their income that I did, then that would be different.
Don't misunderstand me. This is just a general number based on the percentage of GDP that people pay, or that the populace pays, not individuals, but the populace pays. So that includes business taxes, rich people's taxes, poor people's taxes, everybody's taxes. So overall, the country is taxed extremely low. Where most of that deficit is in the wealthier sector, who has extraordinarily low taxes for wealthy, even though they claim businesses,
Right.
They always claim the highest number before all their loopholes and deductions that they get to take, which is a false number,
Yeah.
But and even percentage of taxes is kind of a false number because spending power you have versus the economy.
Yes.
So, you might
percentage of your wealth.
I could tax you, let's say I taxed you 80%, $1 million. That's the important number. The algorithms are all screwed up, but.
Anyway, we got off this track.
I know. I tend to ramble. That's why you're here.
So anyway, let's just keep our eye on this situation because I agree with what you said earlier. I think even if Mueller somehow can't find, there's obviously connections between some Russian interest in the campaign that clearly had conflicts of interest, that clearly involved collusion in some facets.
Right.
That's absolutely going to come out with the Mueller investigation. But on top of that, while that's all going on, let's just say, I don't even know, I wouldn't call this a best case scenario because I'm not really interested in having President Pence. Okay? So let's just put that in there. But, that means that he has to somehow have Teflon on and not become found culpable in this at all. Just in the Nixon presidency, I mean, everybody went right. They had to essentially get someone, Gerald Ford. So anyway, I'm not excited about President Pence. So even if this doesn't come down from the whole entire Russian investigation, he is absolutely using his position to increase his wealth, which is unprecedented in the American presidency. They never had to put rules in place before. Because everyone was so respectful of and they realized that they became the most powerful person in the world.
Right.
Period. So, hey, you're going to become the most powerful person, but you can't do any of the other things you used to do. Okay, fine. Everybody else is, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'll divest myself. No problem. Done tomorrow.
Yeah.
This cat doesn't do that.
No.
Right? They haven't even put the rules in place to handle something like this yet because no one pre-pushed things to this extent.
Right. That's definitely a new development.
Nuance.
And the fact and say, okay, let's change the rules a little bit so this can't happen again.
And
put it in and enshrine it in law, not just have it be tradition and this isn't what's done.
Because there's some people like this dick who just don't give a flying fuck about tradition or what's right.
Right.
It's not just tradition. Tradition is the wrong word. It's what is the right way.
Well, they're ethical violations.
And ethics.
And
there's the thing he's lacking.
And the problem is, it's very hard to bring charges against a sitting president. There's a lot of legal, precedents that say, even Nixon himself said, if the president does it, then it's legal. And Trump has trumpeted that. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
But, they've said that. So I think it's one of those things that down the road will be addressed.
So shut up.
Yeah, so...
All right, so let's move on. Let's just get out of politics.
Let's get out of politics. Let's get into
let's get into the world of science. So I found this really good article in it was in National Geographic.
Yeah, it's time for our pause.
Oh, you have to take a leak?
Yeah.
All right.
Because I'm a leaker.
All right. So
why don't you recap the
pause
bears?
It. No, that's a whole conversation.
All right. Well, then why don't you pontificate about science and then come back with a question for me when I get back?
All right. Go.
So we got to have this whole transition thing work.
Here, I'll start with a quote.
Do that.
This is just more people to noodle on for the four of you that will listen later. So the quote is, "Mundane existence is the source of renewed suffering. The human goal is to attain release from the bondage of material existence." That's from Frank Herbert, and the book is Destination Void. In case you're interested, kind of a bit of an obscure science fiction novel about the birth of AI and how humanity comes about to do that. Fantastic book. It's very good, really short. It's only about, 150 pages. So if you dig science fiction, I'd say check it out. But I like that quote from the whole idea that so many ailments in our society that people have, depression, anxiety, anger issues, so on and so forth, all based on this consumer materialistic apocalypse, if you will. What are we more than just simply consumers? And that's what this quote addresses. You're so angry, you're so disillusioned because you are seeking to be something more than a consumer, than just the material existence. So, not just TV timeout. I gave the 3 people something to noodle on. Now, keep it going until I take a piss.
Okay. Well, let's switch it back up again a little bit. We were talking a little bit about the history and science. So I kind of want to not really speak specifically about a topic, but I would like to just challenge folks to go back in their history and understand something. A lot of things that we take as sort of law or that isn't necessarily wrong, but it was by no means a consensus back in the time. And the same goes for a lot of our political and historical events. Things change because different people get elected. Things change because, Jack Kennedy, when he was assassinated, he was the new Democrat. He was the bringing on the next generation. Well, what happened after that was the old generation took back over, and eventually, leading up to the Reagan years, the Gilded Age was relaunched, all because of a very particular moment in time when one candidate was removed and the other candidate was put in place. Now, we don't know what would have happened had that event not taken place, but we can definitely see a cosmic shift in the results in what happened in Western world and in our history. Same thing happens with news articles. We talk about what we were the statues is a great example. There's a lot of hoopla about these statues going up and down, but the truth of the matter is that those statues were put up because politicians put them up, and politicians with an agenda who people say, well, they're tearing down history. Well, it's only one part of history. These guys fought and lost the war, and depending on what your point of view on that war was in those political situations is how you saw these people. And so when you go back, and we're going through this now where people want those statues because the memorial is taken down, the reason that they're fighting, and if you go to the leaders of the movement, not the folks offended, that the folks that basically fought for the something that they were against, that they actually went to war and won, their ancestors did, it got returned around by the new folks.
This sounds very crackerish.
It's very crackerish. The point that I was making during our little delay here was that a lot of the truths in history are simply the political realities that emerged. But if you dig back into the actual details of what was going on, hardly was it a consensus. Hardly. So,
Sure.
Do your due diligence, study your history, and it makes things that happen today a lot more interesting because you see where history is repeating itself, where the shifts in political tide are changing, just like they did 100 years ago, 200 years ago, etc.
History is valuable, so pay fucking attention. Go back and read some shit.
It would be good to read your history and not the conspiracy stuff. Read the stuff that you can factually verify, stuff that we know was going on and who was the political powers at the time. And know that it's an opinion, but it's important to know that there was a lot of different opinions.
There's a thing called a library.
There is these libraries I heard about.
All right, let's move on.
We're moving on.
Let's go to the world of science. Let's do some happy news.
Happy news.
So National Geographic. So here, let me just preface this a little bit. So I love National Geographic. I have all my life. As a kid, it sparked all of my interests in science, nature, archaeology, history, you name it. It all started at National Geographic. So I still subscribe.
Sounds subversive.
No, I still subscribe. Fantastic our magazine.
Subversive liberal rag.
Right. So anyway, not necessarily my problem with it, but they have no choice but to, since they focus on all those things. One of the major things they focus on, obviously, is climate change, right, and the effects of it, right? There's always something in about the horrific damage that we're doing in the aftermath of it if we don't do anything to change.
I thought it was global warming. You liberals changed the name of it to confuse us.
Climate change. Jeez, God. So anyway, so this article, what if people get together and actually work together as a community can happen to you? There's that whole concept that I think is people find hokey and started in the 90s and act locally, think globally, right? Mm-hmm. Well, here's an instance in fishing, right? And let me just get into it, where these people in this community all decided to fish in a certain fashion to allow the schools of fish in the reefs that they fish in to regenerate, right? Mm-hmm. Only harvest at certain times when they're their most robust, right?
Right.
And essentially have stewarded their marine resources to the point where they're incredibly lush, incredibly robust. They have insane harvest to where every fisherman has in the villages has a decent life, pensions even, right? No one's strapped. Everyone's working together to manage these marine resources to where it benefits the fish and actually it's clams or they're abajaros, which I think are a type of clam, right? To manage all these resources, so they're not they're not fishing them to extinction, which means then your whole livelihood is extinct, right? They started this, and this is in Mexico actually, right? Where we assign backwards thinking and to the third world, where these people are actually on the cusp of how where we should put the example of how we should manage local resources, right? So since 1948, they've been fishing. They've been doing this. So in the 70s, so it's 1970s. They did this. So everyone's been fishing there since the fucking 40s, right? So if you decided to try something new, they would manage the lobster and later the apolo, which I think is a clam, for the long-term and immediate profits. Today, the Aparos and a few like-minded Baja communities following the same strategy caught more than 90% of Mexico's they catch. So all of these apples are coming from this area, right? But it's a healthy population. These critters, right? Versus just, like trawling. You know what trawling is?
Trawling like in fishing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they drop a net that's it's like a square.
Catch it all.
Yeah, regardless of whether they know what they're fishing for.
Right.
Yeah. It's just horrific, Anyway, so like they said, so they have these, the town waters are guarded using radar, boats, and planes. And it's not, just the officials. Like it's the community guarding the resource, right? Working together with the authorities, right? Because obviously you're going to have better outcomes that way. You have more. You can't pay someone to cover all that ground, right? Or an authority to pay all that ground. But it's valuable to everyone. They have a vested interest,
right,
in making sure that this environment stays pristine and managed, right? And it's just an example to me in this world where all we hear constantly of where no one's changing their behavior and expecting different outcomes, right? People, right? It's just kind of refreshing.
Well, it's very refreshing because they're using the dirty word socialism,
right,
in a positive way that helps their community.
Everybody economic,
and that's just a bunch of bullshit. You can't outfish what God breeds, so we're just going to fish them all,
right? Kill
them all in a year or two and make as much money as we can at once, which is what the capitalists tend to do. Which is really ironic because it's almost anti-capitalism because think they would think long term.
Totally counterproductive.
It's counterproductive, but they figure they'll just
self-destructive. Really, counterproductive is not even the right word. Self-destructive.
Yeah, it's self-destructive. Yeah. And here's a group of people that are, using common interest and common, need to come together as a community,
right,
and agree on a simple, obviously scientific and tested theory to make a better life themselves.
Right.
Now, as soon as you start to grow that beyond that society and human nature gets involved, you wonder what would happen.
Right. Well, there's actually
there's
two
a beautiful
communities.
example
So
of what
that's a
could
good
happen.
thing. There's two, and they're all on the Baja coast,
right,
of Mexico, on the west coast of the Baja. And there's like two communities that do this.
Mm-hmm.
That they have. Then they basically have these big. They're fairly large areas when you think about the size, right?
Mm-hmm.
But small, obviously, in comparison to the world,
the world
right?
and the ocean, right?
But yeah, So there's just look to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of these scientific principles, when you somehow, I don't know exactly why, and I'd have to go look, is why science got so politicized in the last 10, 15 years.
Well, it stopped telling the story that people wanted to hear.
Well, or they
or couldn't use to spin the story in the way that kept them in power.
Right, and so they started attacking, and cell phones would be another left wing theory.
Controlled.
Yeah, it would just it's hard to understand. I have a lot of friends that constantly post things and put out things, and I'm like, what the hell are you thinking, and why would you think that? And I kind of want to do like a Facebook Friday or something like that, where I just start reading posts that people put out on Facebook, because that information needs to be attacked and destroyed in terms of the logic, because the logic isn't there.
But see, it's like that move that we talked about when Eric was on here. That was that emotional. There's the emotional response, and then there's the factual response.
Right.
That whole, like, they're not reacting on fact.
No.
Or they're reacting on emotion. So you can't dispute that. Like, you can't attack that, because then you're attacking. You're not attacking. They're not even starting from a place of information.
Right.
Right. They're starting from a place of emotion where.
Yeah. So you're almost better like putting the spotlight on them and saying, please explain yourself.
Right.
And then when they can't,
provide the information that is
but
how you came here. Give us the data.
Yeah.
That provided that said, okay, this is the view. Now I'm going to read this data, and now I believe this.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and seeing that up. We ready for sports yet, or we still got something else?
Nope, we can go to sports.
Because it's sort of like it's not an evidence based. Not an evidence-based opinion. It's geographical
association.
It's home turf. It's I can pick on my little brother, but if you do anything to him, I didn't think.
Right.
And so
let's go Bears week 1. I think
Bears week 1. What do you think?
I thought it was a really positive game. I was really surprised.
We came in from one drop pass of possibly tying up, maybe even winning that game.
Well, in their secondary, was supposed to be the weak spot. I thought they played really well. Julio Jones, which was the breakdown, right? There's that one play with that 81 Hooper guy.
Yeah.
Where like there's 4 guys covering 2 in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and then he's wide.
Yeah, he's wide open in the middle of the field. Like that
major breakdown.
That play doesn't happen. They possibly win this game.
Yeah, I mean, we were that close. Yeah. And they got
2 running backs.
Yeah, but how about that?
And one of the best receivers. Julio Jones is pretty fucking good.
One of our DBs got in a shoving match with him, and I'm like, that's probably not a good idea. He's nothing but muscle.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
He's a big ass dude.
6'4" or something.
6'4", and
6'3",
he has like 2% body fat. He's just gonna whoop ass. But what about our new discovery, number 29,
Tariq Cohen?
Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, the kid's good. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Just him and Howard are a potent 1-2 combination in the backfield.
He was a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting him to be that good.
I was dogging that draft pick. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing picking this kid up in the 4th round?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. It's like Alabama, A&M, or some weird shit like that. So I thought I had heard of every 1AA school. Never heard of that one.
No, this is brand new.
Never heard of that one.
But yeah, I mean, the kid is, like I was going to say, I think I've eaten sandwiches bigger than that kid. But
5'6", 179.
Fast, elusive.
Something like that.
Fast, elusive, and
yeah, absolutely fast. He's got the quick twitch.
But what I love what you had to say in the game was like, whoa, don't fall too in love with this kid because you're going to get him killed.
Yeah, don't give him too many carries.
Yeah, he's a kid
179. He's not going to last all that long.
He's not going to last long. And he took some hits. Remember that one hit?
Yeah.
The guy had a 4 or 5 step.
I still want to see Howard get 20 plus carries a game.
Yeah,
I like how they used him in the passing game. And I like how they used him on occasional toss plays and stuff like that. I really like that.
I would have liked him seen a few more times using the first down instead of Tariq Cohen.
Yeah,
that was a mistake.
I think Howard's got to get 20 carries.
Yeah,
because he's the hammer.
He's the hammer, and he's got great feet, like you said.
And he still can get big plays. I mean, he's not like he's just one dimensional.
No, he's a real. Don't get like you said. Don't fall into love with the shiny new object. But I think it's good. You know what really the one that impressed me more than probably anybody was Mike Glennon. Yeah. Because Matt Glennon. Matt Glennon?
I'm pretty sure it's Matt, right? Matt Glennon? Yeah.
I don't give it.
Anyway, Glennon, go. He played really well.
Well, the point is he played really well. He managed the game well. He took the right sacks.
Yeah, he didn't try.
He
and
didn't
make,
try to make
yeah.
things out of things that weren't there. He made some great passes. I don't remember him making a really horrible pass.
No,
I mean, if it
He had
happened,
one, stray.
I thought that he
There
ran
was an
the
interception, so that's all that matters.
the offense looked better than we expected, and I thought he managed the game, which is an insult to any quarterback. But I think he was good enough to keep Trubisky on the bench for at least a year.
Oh yeah, I
And,
absolutely agree with that.
That's exciting because
Against the top caliber defense.
he wasn't playing schleps again.
No.
You know, I mean, we haven't seen Trubisky against the true number one defense yet
Yeah.
either. So everyone's all smoking his pipe, but I think
The kid needs to stay on the bench until
think
that
that-
offensive line is healthy. Number one, 26 for 40, which is 65% for 213 and a touchdown.
right. Well, and those numbers, because he was.
He was sacked 4 times. There was some pressure.
There was some pressure, but he was, he was trying to. His numbers were better earlier in the game, and I think he was, we got to the point where we were pressing because we couldn't, kick a field goal. And all right, guess who's home?
Guess Riga's home.
Mama's home.
Riga's home.
Hey,
Quiet, dogs.
we're live.
Quiet.
Live on YouTube. It's the DammitJim show and his Dammit dogs.
Goddamn dogs.
Damn dogs. Hula.
I got a treat.
Ooh. That's not fair. Is
Well,
she even out
you know,
there?
Tariq Cohen was also the number one receiver. He had 8 catches. So I would have liked to see them. Did she come through the garage?
No, she's coming through the front door. But see, the thing is, my dogs can't differentiate between the mailman dropping off something and my wife coming home. They still
Sunday.
sing. They still sing the same song of.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't listen to you very well, Jim.
The shut up part.
Yeah.
But, well, they get quiet for a second, then they start back up.
Hey, fellas, ladies. It's mostly ladies.
Hula.
All right. So anyway, solid overall performance. Defense played really well. I mean, they shut down. Really, if it wasn't the offense was a little bit more competent, there's no way they'd even score 23. So possess the ball a little bit more. I would like to see more carries for Howard. I think they can see that next week.
Yeah, I think they
Throw
kinda,
more balls to Simmons and
Sims
and
McGowan. But after his 2 receptions and 6 yards.
they didn't really say much.
So he's up to what, 4.5 games or 6.5 games now that he's
He
played?
what, 6 games last year? Yeah, he needs to go. It's just,
We played
it's
0
sad.
his rookie year. He played
This kid's
6
got
last
the
year.
fucking dimensions. He's 6'3".
I know, but what's going on with him? Is he just bad luck, or does he just not want to play in the NFL? Because at some point, after the 3rd injury, you kind of have to wonder, like, okay.
Bites back with TD. Right, fucking hold on.
Did he get injured in college a lot?
I think he did have an injury. One major knee injury or something. Let's see what the AP says. 2 million without power. Hurricane Irma. Not messing around. Thanks. Hey, thanks a lot. Let's just before we finish off. I just want to say a big fuck you to Rush Limbaugh and anybody that listens to him. Going out there and saying that hurricane was a hoax.
Yeah, it was a liberal media
Jesus Christ.
that they're
What a piece of
overplaying.
shit. Anybody who listens to that fucking guy gives him any credence, seriously, suck a fart out of my ass.
Well, who I want to know who didn't leave their house because they listened to Rush Limbaugh.
I'm sure there's probably I bet you it was a healthy population of people.
Yeah.
More so than
And folks, why are we not talking about reintroducing the fairness doctrine? We can't because there's been a right-wing media, empire that's been built since that was repealed. But this is how people like Rush Limbaugh and Alex Jones, and this is how their lifeblood, because they're no longer required to offer, balanced opinions on subjects of, national importance and, public importance. They are no longer. They're allowed to simply pontificate by themselves without any interference. And this is what you get. You get people who literally are saying that a hurricane isn't dangerous. Don't leave your home. Ignore the authorities.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get
and the
arrested
physical
for that.
evidence. It destroyed an island in the Caribbean.
Right.
I mean, there's no shield on one of those little islands.
Right. Of
Yeah.
course. His ass evacuated because
He fucking evacuated. What a pussy.
I know. I hope that they I don't know. At some point,
Throw him in the eye of the storm
yeah.
in a little tugboat. Good luck.
If you can find
Tough
an inner
guy.
tube big enough to get around him,
Yeah.
drop him.
Right?
So, how about those Cubs?
15 to what?
We're going to be very exciting.
By the way, let's
gave
just
up
give
8 runs,
since
8
the
runs in the
local aspect. at least until the last couple games, Diamondbacks had won 13 games in a row. And we're closing in on, let's see what they're doing right now. Closing in.
Are you sure? That sounds like Cleveland won 13.
No, they won 17 in a row.
Yeah, but did the Diamondbacks win 13 in a row?
Absolutely they did.
That's crazy.
They were killing it.
Well, the problem that
They're only 10 games back now from the Dodgers.
That's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
If they catch the Dodgers, that would be...
Well, the Dodgers had lost. The Dodgers were on a tailspin, too.
Yeah, well, they kind of blew their wad at the beginning of the season.
Well, you can't expect a rookie to lead you all the way through the playoffs.
Exactly.
You can't.
So I don't think the Dodgers are going to make it through. That's just my opinion. But the Cubs don't have the pitching, man.
They won today. Diamondbacks did, but they had won 13 before.
I mean, we might be able to steal a couple series if we move our pitchers around just perfectly right and our hitters don't completely suck. We're getting Contreras back.
Think of a gauntlet to run that. I mean,
well, they have to get through 2 major series, but they don't have to do. Diamondbacks have to go through a wild card game and then into the series. So the Diamondbacks have a pretty trick game, a single wild card game. They have to beat probably
the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah. So they got to play that one game. I mean,
who
the way
they
things
just swept.
True, that was this week. But one game, anything can happen. Then they have to get through. I guess they would play the. No, they play the
lowest seed.
The lowest seed would be the Dodgers to play the lowest.
No, the
seed.
higher seed.
Yeah,
so they play the Dodgers.
So the Cubs. The Cubs should play the Dodgers because the Cubs would be the lowest seed. So they'll play the Nationals.
No, but I thought the seeds were all the division winners are 1, 2, 3, and then the wild card is 4. So then it means the Diamondbacks would play the Cubs. Or no, the Diamondbacks. Yeah, Diamondbacks play the Dodgers, depending.
Oh, right. The Diamondbacks. You're right.
The 4, and then the Cubs would have to play the Nationals,
and
that's no pleasant. I mean, that's like the best team really in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, without Bryce Harper, they're still kicking people's asses.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough haul because the Cubs. I mean, the pitching is
People
not
forget about
looking
that.
good.
Murphy Kid and Rendon, they got a pretty good team.
Yeah, they got a great team, and the Cubs, they have a great solid team, lots of position players, more than we need. But with the pitching not being there, I mean, it's tough.
It hurts
because you're going to have basically it's going to come down to Arrieta, John Lester, and John Lackey are going to have to be the pitchers because everyone else after that is it's like rolling the dice. Hendricks has not been. I mean, Hendricks is going to be our 4th. Last year he should have been our 1st.
Yeah.
You never know. If they all get hot at the same time, we have the pitching. But our middle relief, which is great in the first half of the year, has been giving up everything. He was basically pitching batting practice. He would strike out 2 guys and then throw it down the middle, and some guy would put it 450 feet into the houses somewhere. Yeah. So he's always been rough. Wade Davis has been absolutely brilliant, our closer. But the problem is we never get it there. Mm-hmm. When you're down 15-2, you don't put him in. When you're up 15-2, you don't put him in.
No.
He's at least fresh. I'll give him that.
Fresh.
But I think the Cubs are in for. First of all, they need to hold on and keep because if they don't win the Central, then they're out because there's no wild card coming out of the Central.
Nope,
they're way behind.
I don't know. The Rockies kind of were flirting with disaster there. They seem to kind of right the ship a little bit. Yeah,
we'll see. But I have a strong feeling that the Cubs need to win that division or they are going to be out. But I think they will. They have a better ball club than everybody else. It's not a great division.
Well, the Cardinals right now are 3 games behind the Rock. Tailspin, and let's say St. Louis or Milwaukee were take them, they would be at least 2 to 3 games behind the Rockies to make the playoffs.
Right. So that's
just to make the 1-game playoff. Especially in a situation like this where the Diamondbacks any other year would be running away with their division. Right. And now they have to play a 1-game wildcard team with a team that's barely going to be able to save 500. I don't like that.
I agree. I mean, but here's the problem we have though, because in the society we live, it creates basically a game 7 in the first game, 2 game 7s.
Right.
It's a one and done. So everybody wants to watch that game because the tension is so high.
I've never watched one.
Oh, they're exciting. Exciting as fuck because
I watched the ALCS last year because I was in Toronto. And the company I worked for owned the Blue Jays. Rogers.
This could be the actual moment.
This is that was just a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, well, like I said, the mailman might call it
a show.
All right,
I think we talked about everything, and that's the bye dogs, bye everybody.
Hold on, we need music. We got to do the whole out. You can't.
Then do the music.
I'm trying to, but it reset itself. So.
Boom, boom. We have a cacophony of little dogs. Oh, I think there's actual keys. Huh?
No, there's no keys. It's a lock. Why are you not playing? Don't want to get news. Should I sing?
You no idea how to operate your equipment.
Fuck you. I know how to operate the equipment, but it's not playing. I don't know why.
So anyway, folks, thanks for the 5
All
people
right.
that listen.
I never said it, but
And-
hello, everybody, and goodbye, everybody.
Bear down.
Bear down, and we are. Oh, wow.